Hello again and welcome. I'm Nathan Ayotte. As a reminder, please like and or subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so. Strategies. Option strategies are the name of the game today. Taking what we have learned at this point using our business perspective investing philosophy, ability to evaluate the underlying option stock, and armed with the formulas I've presented, we are now ready to implement 4 different business strategies, as I call them. Different strategies will be used dependent on the underlying stock price at the time. Therefore, these strategies can be implemented whether the price is high or low. The 4 strategies I will present have the following structures, and this can be viewed as the outline for today's content. In addition, we will cover a real and live example for each strategy for clarity. Importantly to note, if you are watching this video after these options have already expired, don't worry, because the principles, lessons, and strategies themselves will persist and can be learned and applied. The 4 different strategies are as follows. Number 1, when the market price is low, buy calls, set the strike price at the market price with a long expiration, and be willing to pay medium-priced premiums. Strategy number 2, when the market price is medium, sell puts. Strike price is set low, medium expiration date, and be willing to receive medium to high-priced premiums. Strategy number 3, when the market price is high, sell puts. Strike price is set to medium, short expiration is set, and be willing to receive low to medium-priced premiums. Okay, strategy number 4, when the market price is low, buy calls. Strike price is set below the market price. A long expiration date is chosen. Be willing to pay medium to high priced premiums. But sell covered calls on these initial calls purchased at strike prices and shorter expiration dates that make business sense to continually earn a stream of income. Stay tuned for advanced strategy number 4. These are the 4 option contract strategies we will cover in detail. I'll talk about what I mean when I say low, medium, and high, which will be more clear when we cover an example for each business strategy. Then you can begin applying these yourself. You will be taught how to structure the terms of the contract just as you would by setting the terms of a business deal. Remember, this is why I stress approaching option contracts with a business-like philosophy so much, so you can be wiser with your approach of the terms of the business deal that you set yourself. So, let's start with strategy number 1. Number 1, when the market price is low, buy calls. Strike price is set at market price with a long expiration and be willing to pay medium-priced premiums. When I say set the market price to low, the stock on which you plan to buy the calls is currently undergoing a market correction, meaning that it's down or it is decreased 10% from its recent highs, or even a bear market, meaning it's down 20% or more from its recent highs. The strike price is to be set at or near the current market price. A long expiration must be set, meaning an expiration date that expires 12 to 24 months out in the future. Willing to pay medium price premiums, meaning you are willing to pay premiums that constitute a time value cost of 5 to 15% of the strike price in dollars per share is the unit. These calls will not sell for pennies since the expiration is long, and will not be too expensive since the market price of the stock just declined, and you are setting the strike price at the market price and not lower than the market price. So, why use this strategy? Purchasing this call strategy with these terms effectively gives you the right to own and control the underlying stock at the current market price. Hence, the strike price is set at the market price, and you only have to pay, let's say, 15% in time value of the entire price of the stock, with the choice to buy the underlying stock, let's say 2 years out in the future. In other words, I'm only paying about 1/7 of the price of the share value, yet I reserve the right to experience the full financial benefit of the stock upon the share price increasing for the next 2 years, or whenever the expiration date is set. Let's look at a real example. Okay, I'm going to use the color green here, and we're going to actually look at a specific example here that I'm going to write on the board. All these examples that I've selected, these are real examples from true option contracts that I recently selected based on the current market price when I actually chose the option contract, which was very recent. Okay, so example number 1. We have here a Visa contract, and it's expiring 1/19/2024. Okay, and the strike price is $215, and like this strategy 1 is, you're buying a call. Now, at the current market price, when I looked, the value of this option was $34 a share. Okay? And the current market price of Visa this time was the same price as the market price, which is what this particular strategy entails. Okay, so what is this option contract doing for us? Well, what are the rights of this contract? What are the terms? Well, V, which is the ticker symbol for Visa, so this is controlling Visa stock. We are able to control Visa stock all the way up until this expiration date, January 19, 2024. Okay, as I'm recording this right now, it's August 1st, 2022. So we have almost a little less than a year and a half away before this contract expires. We control stock at this strike price, $215 a share. And this is a call, meaning that we have the right to buy 100 shares for every contract that we buy at $215. Now, the current market price is $215, and that was by design because that's the current market price. That's the strike price that I'm selecting. And the current option value that you would pay if you were buying these option contracts is $34 per share, meaning that one option contract controls 100 shares, so 100 shares times 34, you're talking $3,400. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to calculate what the actual cost is to us from an annualized return cost basis of buying this contract. So what we've learned on the former video, we need to use the option value formulas to calculate what that is. Okay, using a different color here. The option value equals VI plus VT minus VD. And remember, VI equals the market price minus the strike price. Okay? And I took a look how much dividends Visa would pay until today, all the way until the expiration date, and the total comes to $2.20 a share. Okay, so now we can go ahead and solve for the time value, which will be VT in the equation. Okay, so plugging things in, V naught we know is 34, or the option value, which is the value of the contract, $34. The intrinsic value, well, we know this is PM minus PS, and the market value is $215. Well, the strike price is also $215, so $215 minus $215, of course, this goes to 0. Plus VT minus VD, which is the dividend value, which is the total dividend value between now and expiration, which is $2.20. I'll put 2.2. So now we can solve for VT. And VT, if we solve this out, comes to 36.2. And that would be dollars per share. So what is the annualized return cost to us when we buy a contract like this? Well, if you remember, I'm going to kind of abbreviate, annualized return cost equals VT divided by PS, which is the time value divided by the strike price, all multiplied by 365 divided by the time until expiration. Okay? Simple as that. So just plug in the numbers. You got 36.2 is the time value divided by the strike price, which is 215, all multiplied by 365 divided by the days till expiration. Taking a look what that is, which is January 19, 2024, we get 535 days from today. Okay, solving this math here, it comes out to 11.5%, which is 11.5% per year, because this is annualized by using this little component here, 365 days divided by, this is beyond, this is more than a year long, so the denominator is larger, which actually causes the number to come down because it's such a long period of time. So it comes out to 11.5% per year, which is our cost in terms of almost looking at it from the point of view of interest that we owe, that we actually have paid in the value of the option contract compared to the amount of value of Visa that we control. To talk a little bit about more what this actually means, so for $3,400, you are controlling $21,500 in a Visa stock for about 17 months or 535 days. How do I know it's $21,500 of stock? Well, remember, this is the strike price at which you control the Visa stock. $215 times 100 shares per contract, 100 times 215, you get $21,500 of Visa stock. If Visa reaches its high again of $252 by the expiration in January 2024, the value of these contracts will not be less than $37 per share. You say, well, Nathan, how do you know it's $37 per share if it gets back up to its recent highs of $252? Well, look at this. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and erase some of the material here. Let's go ahead and erase this section here. You always look what the this formula is here. So looking at this, VI, which is the intrinsic value, equals the PM. If the market price is 252 and we control stock at 215, then these contracts will certainly not be less than $37 a share. 252 minus 257, excuse me, 252 minus 215 is 37. Okay, so if this is at the time of expiration, when there's no more time value left, if we paid $34, which was our original cost basis, and we're able to sell the contracts for $37, or you can even exercise them and get that $37 value out of the contract, then what is our actual return that we made? Okay, well, I am going to utilize this because this is the same exact formula. Okay, to calculate this, you would see what the net gain is, which is 37 minus 34. We made $3 a share, divided by what the cost basis of it originally was, which was 34. So we made $3 on an investment of $34, and if we held the investment all the way until expiration, then it's going to be 365 divided by 535, and from there, using your trusty calculator, you get 6%, which is your annualized return for those 535 days or 17 months for holding this contract. Now, I'm going to note, this is not a very attractive return. Although the share price could increase much sooner than the expiration day and preserve the time value, and therefore you could sell the contracts for a much better annualized return, there is uncertainty that it will not do that. As a result, my conclusion after doing this assessment would be to wait for a better Visa price. Visa has often in the past dipped below $190 per share. And in fact, my calculated present value of Visa targeting a 15% average annual compound return comes to $185 per share. So buying option calls such as Visa, expiring 1/19/2024, 185 calls at $38 per share, which the $38 per share is determined from option history charts when Visa was selling for less than $190 per share in mid-June of 2022, is a much better purchase and certainly attainable. With these contract terms, and upon Visa reaching its $252 high again by January 2024, notice the value of the contracts now. Observing the potential intrinsic value, the contracts would not be less than $67 per share. How would you know that? Well, let's go ahead and do the math. Okay, so using our intrinsic value formula again. So if indeed we actually purchased 185 calls, and if the market price goes down to about 185, the value of those contracts, like I've already mentioned before, these contracts will sell for about $38. Just a little side note too. Notice the comparison here. You're paying only $4 more than the former contracts, but you control Visa at a price that is $30 less. That's a much better deal simply by just looking and comparing the option value price of these two termed contracts. Okay though, well let's finish answering the question. If you bought these contracts at $38 per share, then the intrinsic value of these contracts, if it went back up to its recent highs of $252, you've got $252 minus, you control the stock now at $185, not $215. Okay, and what is the price? Well, it's going to be $67 a share. 252 minus 185, because just to make this very clear, when you own this type of option call, you have the right to buy Visa at 185. So if you were to exercise this option, you would have the right to buy at 185, and if the going market price is 252, then you could immediately sell 100 shares for every option, for every contract you own at 252. So you're simply profiting the difference, buying at 185, selling at 252. What is your gain? Well, it's $67 per share. Okay, so I hope that part is really clear. Now, that's a $29 net gain. Now, how did I get that? Well, if you spent $38 a share on your initial investment and you're selling it and getting $67, then the difference is $29 of net gain. Okay, so what percentage of a gain is that? Well, let's quickly calculate it. Your annualized return equals your net gain divided by your actual initial cost, which was $38. And we got to annualize it, so we got 365 days divided by 535. And that equals, go ahead and plug those numbers into our calculator. And that equals 52.1%. That's, of course, a very good return. And much, much better than the other return that we had calculated, which was what, about a 6% or so? Notice the return is much better than the terms of the Visa that we looked at before at the strike price of $215. 52.1% compared to 6%. In fact, the actual net profit, if you're looking at it from that perspective, let's just clear out a space here. The other one was, well, this one is $29 of net profit. The other one was $3 of net profit. So what does that actually equal? That equals a 9.7 times better return than if we had purchased this contract when the strike price or when the market price was $215. That's a huge difference. So the conclusion is certainly to wait to purchase these option calls when Visa dips below $190 per share, rather than purchasing at the current market prices of $215 per share, especially when our Bephitology tool is calculating a present value of $185. So going through that math, it would help you recognize that, okay, if I purchase this contract when the Visa market price is $215 and it goes all the way up to the highs of $252 by the expiration date, I'm only going to gain 6%, which is pretty lousy return when it comes to option contracts. So that's your signal to be patient, wait, don't move forward with your those option contracts. Wait for the price to get better. And indeed, if the price is often coming down to below 190, and you've actually calculated with a tool that the real value of Visa is about 185, then it's a lot better and a lot less risk and a lot more profitable to just wait for the price to come down to that price. Okay? Great. Now, for strategy number 2. When the market price is medium, sell puts, set your strike price low, and set your expiration to a medium level, and be willing to receive medium to high-priced premiums. When I say the market price is medium, the stock on which you plan to buy the call is experiencing normal market conditions. It's not in a bear market, nor is it hitting new all-time highs. It's in between that. and it may be around correction territory, but probably is about 5 to 10% below recent highs. The strike price is to be set at or near the stock's bear market price, which again is 20% below its recent market highs. A medium expiration is meant to be an expiration date selected due to expire in about 3 to 6 months out. Willing to receive medium to high priced premiums, meaning you are targeting premium earnings, providing an annualized return of 15 to 30% or better. The philosophy behind strategy 2 is to produce some good income. Notice that the underlying stock price does not have to be in correction territory, although the premiums earned are better if it is. The strike price as part of your term is set low to the bear market price or better, so that if you were ever assigned the contracts, you are buying the stock at a fair to good price. You want the expiration date to be set in your terms that give ample time so that the buyers of your contract will pay an attractive premium for them. If the annualized return is not at least 15%, then pass the deal up or wait for the share price to potentially fall further so that the premium earnings buyers are willing to pay increases. Don't compromise on the 15% minimum return. You want to choose a stock to sell your cash secured equity puts that you are comfortable owning. And your strike price should be a price you are comfortable buying the stock. That is a critical point. Let me repeat, that is a critical fact and point to this strategy. Repeat and listen to that again if you didn't understand it. Okay, let's cover another real example. Example number 2. Let me go ahead and clear up our board. Okay, example number 2. We're going to look here at a option contract on Ulta Beauty, ticker symbol ULTA. ULTA at a expiration date that is set out to be September 16, 2022, and the strike price is $350. And this is a cash secured equity put, meaning that you have cash secured in your account to purchase the equity at $350. So this is a put. And when I looked, the option value of this particular contract was $9.50. Okay? And at the time I looked at this contract, the Ulta market price, it was $395 per share. Okay, we'll put that on the side to acknowledge that. Okay, so what is this contract actually telling us? So first, this is an option contract controlling Ulta stock, and it expires on September 16, 2022. Okay, that's about 6 weeks out. And the price is $350. That is the strike price, and this is a put. Now, this is a put that we have sold, okay? And I'm going to put up here, we are selling cash secured equity puts. We're selling put contracts. I'm going to make that very clear with these terms. Now, when we sell a contract like this, we are going to receive $9.50 of premium earnings that will be deposited into our account immediately upon selling these contracts. And that means we'll get $950 for every contract sold. Now, this also means because you are selling the contract and someone is buying your put contract, that means they have the right to sell to you 100 shares at $350 per share, if, of course, market conditions work out in their favor. So that means that for every contract you sell of these cash secured equity puts, you must have $350 times 100 shares, which is $35,000 in your account for every contract you sell. Okay? And you are obligated to purchase 100 shares at $350 until the contract expires, which is, of course, September 16, 2022. Okay, I hope that piece is clear. Now, let's see actually how much of a return we're actually earning by receiving $9.50 on a $350 strike price. Let's take a look here at the formula again. And I'm going to be pretty quick because this is actually pretty straightforward. Okay, so again, we've got V naught equals VI plus VT, and we've got minus VD. Okay, and the intrinsic value equals the strike price minus the market price. Let's go ahead and solve this little component first. So VI, what's the intrinsic value of this contract? Well, the strike price is $350. The market price is $395. So that comes out to a negative $45. Can your intrinsic value be negative? No. If it's less than zero, then it's just zero. So this whole component goes to zero. Okay, so that means our intrinsic value is zero. And that should be obvious because if you are obligated to buy at $350, but the price is $395, the person who's buying your puts, he wants the price, the market price, to fall significantly less than $350. So that way he can buy up the shares low, and he has you in contract to buy from him at $350, he profits the difference. So until the price falls less than $350, the intrinsic value of those contracts are nothing. And the time value just constantly trickles away day by day until they expire completely worthless on September 16. Okay? The option value we know. The option value is $9.50. Okay? Intrinsic value we know is 0 plus VT, we do not know that, plus minus the dividend value. Okay, what is the dividend value? Well, Ulta does not pay dividends, period. So that's 0. So simple as that, 9.5 equals VT. Okay, so our time value is exactly what we got for it, $9.50. Okay, so let's calculate the annualized return. And this is how you would do that. Okay, we've got $9.50 divided by an obligated strike price of $350. Because for every contract put you sell with these terms, you must have $35,000 in your account. So you're earning this $9.50 from this $35,000. The $35,000 is not it's pledged, but it's sitting there not doing anything. It hasn't actually been put to work. It just has to remain as backup for your broker to know that you can purchase these contracts if indeed you were obligated to. So you're earning $9.50 on $350 per share of equity. We have to annualize this. So 365, and the days until expiration of these contracts is 45 days. And we simply plug this into our calculator. Okay, and the return comes out to 22%. Okay, so that is your annualized return for that 45-day holding period. Now that's a very good return. So what will happen with the option value of the contract based on different Ulta stock price movements? I think it's a valid point to go through this. Well, If the current market price of $395 stays about the same or even increases, then the value of these contracts will go down with each passing day. If the market price takes a sharp decline, the value of the contracts will certainly increase, unless there's a very short period of time remaining until the contracts expire, such as a few days or even less. And they are still well above the strike price of $350 per share. However, if the market price of Ulta Beauty falls below the strike price of $350 per share, then the contracts will build intrinsic value. And upon the market price closing on the day of expiration, on September 16, you will be obligated to buy 100 shares of Ulta stock at $350 for every option contract sold. An important side note, on the day of expiration, if the Ulta price is below $350, but at or above the break-even price of $341.50, you could go back in the market and buy and close the contracts to avoid the obligation of buying the Ulta shares, but forfeiting some of your premium income. That is why it is important to already have in your mind that you are comfortable owning the Ulta stock at the $350 strike price. So you do not have to worry about assignment and or closing the contracts, forfeiting earnings is not even a question in mind. Because you know that if you are assigned, that the probability of Ulta climbing back to $350 per share or greater is nearly certain, at which you could sell all your shares back at $350 per share and repeat selling the cash secured equity puts at $350 a share or even a lower strike price and receive much better premiums now, since the market price will be very near your strike price. Or you could just hold the Ulta stock as a short or long-term investment if you so choose. Now, you may ask, well, Nathan, how did you come up with that $341.50 break-even price that I could actually buy and close the contracts all the way up until then? Well, keep in mind, you received $9.50 per share in premiums. So if let's just say hypothetically that if the market price on the day of expiration falls to, let's go to green again, goes to $345 per share, then the value of those contracts is going to be $5. You're able to, the person who owns the puts is able to buy the shares at $345. You're obligated to buy them at $350, so therefore the profit difference is $5, and that will be the intrinsic value on the day of expiration. So you could actually go back in the market, buy those option contracts at $5, and still keep $4.50 of profit if you didn't want to be obligated to have to buy at $350 a share. So hopefully from that example, you can see that you have $9.50 of buy and close power, which would give you all the way down $350 minus the $9.50 in premiums that you received, and that of course will give you $341.50 a share that you could actually purchase the contracts back when Ulta is that low. Anything lower than that, the value of the contracts will be higher than what you receive for them. So I wanted to clear up that little point for you. Okay, moving on to strategy number 3. When the market price is high, sell puts. The strike price is set to medium. Short expirations are in your contract, and be willing to receive low to medium priced premiums. When I say the market price is high, The stock on which you plan to sell the put is at or near its recent highs or all-time highs. The strike price is to be set at or near the stock's market correction price, which again is 10% below its recent highs, as I've mentioned before. A short expiration is meant to be an expiration date selected due to expire in about 1 month or less. Willing to receive low to medium price premiums, meaning you are expecting premium earnings providing an annualized return of less than 15%. The thinking behind strategy number 3 is to produce monthly income. Notice that the underlying stock price can still be rather high. The strike price as part of your terms is set to 10% less than the recent highs, which does provide a cushion of conservatism if the stock does undergo a correction and you are not caught obligated to buy at market highs. You want the expiration date to be set in your terms to be expiring at the last Friday of each month to provide that monthly revenue. Do not expect to make a killing, but you can expect annualized returns between 3 and 15% in most cases to generate some income for yourself. As I said on strategy number 2, you want to choose a stock to sell your cash secured equity puts that you are comfortable owning. And if your strike price is higher than you are comfortable owning the stock based on your own evaluation, then you should not proceed selling such contracts. Only if you are comfortable owning the stock at strike prices that match the correction price should you proceed selling the puts. Again, that is a critical point. Listen to that again if you didn't understand it. Okay, let's cover a third real example. Example number 3. So give me a moment as I clear up the board here for our next example. Okay, we are all ready for example number 3. Now this example is on Monster stock, the Monster beverage company, with ticker symbol MNST. Monster expiring August 26, 2022 at a strike price of $90. And these are puts. And the current value of these contracts are going for $1.25 a share. The current market price of Monster stock is $97 a share. And the recent most highs actually was $99 a share. So I went with $90 at the strike price is what I decided to do using this particular strategy. Okay, so what is this contract saying? Well, this is controlling Monster stock, and it expires on August 26, 2022. Like I mentioned before, today is August 1st, 2022. So in about 3.5 weeks, this contract will expire. Now, we are selling these contracts. Let me acknowledge that again. These are sold for at a strike price of $90. And these are cash secured equity puts, so we have a P. So if the current market price is $97 a share, then right now these contracts hold no intrinsic value, just as we saw with the Ulta Beauty example. However, we're receiving, because they're going for $1.25, for every contract that we sell, we receive $125, $1.25 times 100 shares controlled in every contract. So $125 on $9,000 of cash equity, okay? Because for every contract you sell, if you're going to be obligated at some point, potentially, to buy 100 shares at $90 a share, 100 times 90 is $9,000. So you must have $9,000 in your account for every contract you so wish to sell with these terms. So let's go ahead and use our formulas to kind of diagnose technically this particular contract. And let's see what the annualized return that we would get if we did sell these contracts. And I also want to add another element, kind of like what we did on Ulta, but we didn't do it as early, is to actually just calculate what the break-even price is of this monster contract. Okay, so we of course got, let's go ahead and switch back to our red color here again. The option value equals the intrinsic value plus the time value, and then minus the dividend value, where your intrinsic value equals the strike price minus the market price. Okay, well here, if we're calculating the intrinsic value, the strike price is $90 minus the market price, which is $97, and of course this equals a negative $7. Can your intrinsic value be less than 0? No, it cannot. And if it does, then it's simply 0. So this goes to 0. Okay, so let's go ahead and populate the option value formula. So the option value is $1.25 equals the intrinsic value, which we calculated is 0, plus the time value minus the dividend value. Does Monster pay any dividends? They don't pay any dividends. They hold all of their cash within the company. So that's also 0. So our time value is $1.25 per share. Okay, now before I calculate the annualized return on this, just to kind of add the other element, the break-even price, let's say it's let's just put it BP, equals 90 minus the option value. Okay, if we're receiving $1.25 per share and we're obligated to buy at 90, then we have that extra $1.25 cushion to buy and close out of the contracts if you so chose. So this of course is $88.75 is our break-even price. Okay, but back to calculate what the annualized return on these contracts are. Okay, annualized return, we're getting a $1.25 on $90 of equity times 365 divided by the time until expiration of these contracts, which is going to be 25 days, or actually 26 days, as you would include the day. Okay, populate that into your trusty calculator, and you get a return of 19.5%. Okay, now that is a pretty good return. And I've already noted that this particular strategy is intended for receiving some premiums, but not very high premiums, and you typically wouldn't receive more than 15%. So this is great that these contracts are earning us 19.5% if we so sold them. But I must add a side note here. You can do two things at this point. You can proceed and accept your 19.5% annualized return for a month by selling these contracts. Or, because the premium earnings are better than what you might expect, I've already acknowledged you probably wouldn't expect more than 15% of annualized return on contracts that are structured this way. What you can do is you can now actually lower the strike price. Okay, because the earnings are better than what you might expect, you can now lower the strike price to, let's say, $85 and create more conservatively risked contracts. Therefore, you are under contract to buy Monster at a better price at $85 rather than $90. if the share price sharply declines and stays down until the expiration date. So that is another option that you have available to you. For the sake of time, we're not going to actually go through this case using $85. You can certainly venture a guess you're not going to get $1.25 per share, because these are the probability of it falling to 85 is less than falling to 90. So people are not going to be willing to pay as much in premiums for such a contract. So you might expect it to be, let's say, 75 cents. I'm just throwing that out there. And if you ran 75 cents through this on an $85 cash equity cost basis, you would be able to calculate what your annualized return is. So what will happen with the option value of these contracts based on different monster stock price movements? Well, if the current market closes above the strike price of $90 per share, or $85 a share if you went with that one, on the day of expiration, the contracts expire worthless, meaning they will be non-existent come the following Monday morning. However, if the market price closes less than the strike price on the expiration day, then you will be obligated to purchase 100 shares of Monster at $90 a share for every option contract you sold. An important side note on the day of expiration: if the Monster price is below $90 but at or above your break-even price of $88.75, you could go back in the options market and buy and close the contracts to avoid the obligation of buying the Monster shares, but forfeiting some of your premium income. You will not have a loss though, and at worst will break even, unless the share price falls less than $88.75. Again, that is why it is important to already have in your mind that you are comfortable owning Monster stock at the $90 strike price. So you do not have to worry about assignment or closing the contracts. Forfeiting earnings is not even a question in mind. Because you know that if you are assigned, that the probability of Monster climbing back to $90 a share is nearly certain, at which you could sell all your shares back at $90 and repeat selling the cash secured equity puts at $90 a share or lower, or a lower strike price, and receive much better premiums now, since the market price will be very near your strike price. Or you could just hold on to the Monster stock as a short or long-term investment if you so choose. Please note that this strategy is a tad more on the speculative side and carries additional risks, since you are selling the puts when the market price is near all-time highs and you're only demanding a strike price at 10% decline in share price. Okay, so keep that important note. Listen to that again if you didn't catch what I meant and the reason why these particular strategy contracts are slightly more speculative. Okay, moving on to strategy number 4, our final strategy. When the market price is low, buy calls. Strike price is to be set below the market price. Set a long expiration. Be willing to pay medium to high-priced premiums, but sell covered calls on these initially purchased calls at strike prices and shorter expiration dates that make business sense to continually earn a stream of income. When I say market price is low, the stock in which you plan to buy the call is down 10 to 20% from its recent highs. In other words, between a correction and bear market. You can also do this strategy during a recession when prices are significantly less than 20%. The strike price is to be set about 20% below the market price. In other words, you are in effect placing a 20% down payment on the stock. This effectively lowers the time value you will have to pay and therefore reduce the break-even price of the deal. A long expiration date of 12 to 24 months, giving sufficient time for the stock price to recover, and giving time to sell covered calls against your purchase calls for income. The medium to high premium amount you will have to pay for the initial calls you purchased with this strategy will be a minimum of 20% of the current market price, plus some time value, which will depend largely on the type of stock and your expiration date. After this, you are now equipped to sell covered calls on the calls you now own to generate a reoccurring stream of income. The philosophy behind strategy number 4 is to produce monthly income without bearing the burden of 100% of the stock price. In addition, to receive a fine payout at the end of the strategy upon being assigned or forced to sell the original calls purchased. This is why it is important to buy the calls when the stock is depressed to highly reduce the premiums you will initially pay, and set up your strategy so that upon buying the calls, the market may rebound, growing significant value in your calls. The strike price is set 20% below the market price in efforts to help reduce the time value, but not significantly below the market price, such as 40%, to reduce the cost of premiums you must pay. So there's kind of a healthy balance there. Notice the pattern when you view an option chain that the break-even price will become less and less as you set your strike price less and less, or deeper in the money, as we often say. However, the price of the option you will have to pay will become more the further you lessen your strike price below the market price. I want you to be aware of that relationship. This is occurring because the further below the market price you set your strike price, the more and more intrinsic value you are willing to pay for in the contracts. Long expiration days must be set to give ample time for the stock price to recover. Also, this provides more time for you to sell short expiring covered calls and continue this cycle until either assigned or the original calls purchased expire. Naturally, you will pay a considerable premium if you are placing a down payment of 20% on the stock plus some time value, which you will calculate using the option value formulas. However, the beauty is the ability to now sell covered calls at strike prices that are at or above the break-even price of the original calls that you purchased. This approach will allow you to never lose on the original calls, but earn a decent income assuming the underlying stock price does not continue declining significantly. If the stock price increases and your covered call strike price is exceeded, then the stock you control under the original calls are the collateral you will need to cover assignment on the covered calls sold. However, if you will be assigned on your covered calls, it is more profitable to buy and close the covered call contracts and immediately sell and close the original calls. This preserves the time value in the original calls and you come out more profitable. I realize this strategy is more complex, which is why I saved it for last, and let's cover a real example which will certainly help. Here's the fourth and final example that we're going to cover. And again, I understand this is more advanced, but it's certainly an awesome strategy to utilize with your option contracts. Okay, let's get started with example number 4. First, give me a moment to go ahead and clear up the board. Okay, example number 4. Now, I've chosen to do this option contract because of the specific terms that we're looking at, and Meta Platforms is the company name, ticker symbol META. You may recognize this company because this is Facebook. They've just changed their name and they changed their ticker symbol actually just last month. So it used to be FB for Facebook, but now they've changed their name to Meta. So we're going to look at this particular contract. expiring on September 15, 2023. More than a year out, at a strike price of 125, and these are calls that we are buying, okay? Now the value of these contracts are selling at $52 a share. And the current market price of Facebook, and you'll often hear me use the word Facebook because this is Facebook, but again, they've changed their name to Meta Platforms. The price is currently $159 a share. Okay, so let me go ahead and explain these contracts quickly. Now, we are buying these calls, okay? And this is on, of course, Meta, as I mentioned. These contracts expire about 13 months out on September 15, 2023. At a strike price, we control the Meta stock at $125 per share, and we control this stock to purchase, and hence it's a call. And the value of these contracts are selling for $52 a share. So for one contract, 100 shares, we're looking at $5,200 to purchase one of these contracts. Now, you may ask, man, why is it so expensive? Well, keep in mind, notice the terms of the contract. If the current market price of Meta is $159, we can clearly see if we control at $125, then we're paying at $34 in intrinsic value just by setting our strike price at $125 per share. Remember what I mentioned, that we're setting the strike price about 20% in the money or less than the current market price. And hence I've selected that strike price. And as a result, because our strike price is in the money, then there's automatically intrinsic value. And in this case, $34 worth of intrinsic value. And therefore we know, okay, then we've got about $18 of time value because the actual price of the option contract is $52. I, in essence, just went through the math verbally with you, but we will go through the math to make it absolutely clear. So let's take a look at these contracts from a more quantitative point of view. So option value equals the intrinsic value plus the time value minus the dividend value, okay? Where the intrinsic value is going to be the market price minus the strike price, which I've already acknowledged. This is how I came up with that $34. Market price is $159 minus the strike price, which is $125, which of course equals $34 per share. Okay, so that's the intrinsic value of the contract. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve for the time value. So if we know that the option value is 52 equals the intrinsic value, we calculated that at 34, plus the time value, we're solving for that. And what is the dividend value? Well, if you know, Facebook, Meta, does not pay dividends. They keep all of their earnings. So that is 0. So solving for VT, we've got to, if we're adding 34 on this side, we've got to subtract it on this side. And therefore we've got 18 equals VT. Because this goes to 0, that's 0. So $18 per share equals the time value of these contracts. Now, what is the break-even price? Now, with strategy number 4, the break-even price is more important and more critical than any of the other former strategies that we've looked at. And it's because we're now going to utilize these option calls to sell covered calls against them. And so we need to know what the break-even price is of these contracts so that we don't make the mistake by selling covered calls with a strike price that is less than our break-even price to make sure we come out profitable whatever the market does. So that's very important. So I'm going to put it over here. The break-even price, we'll call it BP, equals $125, which is the strike price, plus what we paid for the contracts, which is $52. And the way you can kind of maybe wrap this in your head, this $125 strike price is the price in the future we have to pay for the Meta shares by this expiration date. So if we have to buy it at this price, and we've already paid $52 to own these contracts, then 125 plus 52 will equal the overall effective price that we've paid, and therefore also represents the break-even price at which we would be profitable or profitable if we sell above, and a loss if we sell at less. So maybe that'll help clarify what this break-even price really represents. I often use effective price to explain this price as well. Okay, and that equals $177. That is our break-even or effective price of these option calls that we are buying. That is an important price, which you'll see here in a moment when we start covering the section where we're selling covered calls against these calls. Okay, let's go ahead and calculate what our annualized return cost is by buying these contracts, since we know that the time value is 18. So, annualized return cost, and I say cost because we're buying these contracts. So the time value is 18 on $125 of equity controlled times 365 days. Then you have in the denominator the time in days until expiration on September 15, 2023, and that comes out to 409 days. Okay. And all we do is, again, use our trusty calculator. And the annualized return cost comes out to 12.9%. Okay? And that's, in essence, almost like the interest cost on an annualized basis, or the annual interest rate on the loan, in essence, if you want to look at it like that, by being able to purchase or control these $125 Meta contracts with these specific terms. So now you control 100 shares of Meta for every contract purchased at a break-even price of $177 per share by the expiration date. However, since we control the underlying stock with these termed contracts, we can now sell covered calls against our contracts and earn covered call premiums all the way until September 15, 2023. Considering today is August 1st, 2022, we have almost 14 months to sell covered call contracts. So we can do two primary actions at this point. The first action, we can either wait for the share price of Meta to increase and sell covered calls at our desired strike price, earning higher premiums than offered right now. So be patient for a while. The second action we can take is sell covered calls the same day we purchase the $125 per share strike calls. If we take the second action, we may consider the following option contract. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and clear up some of the board here. I'm going to try and maintain the original calls, but I'm going to write down a proposal for selling covered calls and then walk through the terms with you on that. So give me a moment as I clean up the board once again. Okay. I just erased the break-even price for the sake of cleaning up the board, but that is an important figure, and I'm going to go ahead and put it up here. Break-even price, as you remember, was calculated at $177 per share on Meta. Now, I'm going to propose these particular covered call contracts that we're now going to sell. So sell Meta expiring August 26th, 2022 at a strike price of $180. Now, these are calls that we're now selling, and right now, when I checked, the option value of these were $1.65 per share. Okay, so you could legitimately sell these covered calls with these specific terms. Notice what's happening here. When you sell, you can sell one covered call for every call that you purchased with these terms here. And you now can turn around and sell the covered calls at a strike price of 180. Now, why did I select 180? Well, if I'm ever obligated to have to deliver the shares at $180 because the person who's now buying these calls has the right to purchase from me at $180. So I got to make sure that if I have to deliver at $180, that means I'm selling at $180 a share. I want that price to be better than my break-even price of $177. So I could have selected a strike price of 178, 180, 185. All those were legitimate. I just selected 180 because the lower I keep my strike price, the better the premiums. But at the same time, I don't want to be lower than 177 or else I may come out with a potential loss, which I don't want that to be even a risk. So I select a strike price of 180. I receive, because I'm selling, I receive $1.65 per share for every covered call that I sell, which times 100 shares is $165. Okay, so you are earning $165 per contract in premiums for each contract sold, which equates to an annualized return of, let's calculate what the return is. Equals, I'm getting $1.65 in premium earnings on what cost basis? Now you're probably immediately going to think, oh, well, on the $180 cost basis. But is that really the price that you have paid? No. The price you've actually paid is $52 to control these specific termed option contracts. So the real cost that you are selling these covered calls against is your initial option value cost of $52 when you purchased these $125 strike calls. So the actual cost basis is 52, not 180. For transparent reasons, you didn't pay 180 and you aren't obligated. You don't have cash on the line at 180. Your cash on the line was what you paid, which was $52 per share for these option calls that you bought. Okay, times, let's annualize it, 365 divided by, we got 26 days until these contracts expire. Of course, pop into your trusty calculator. And your annualized return that you got was 44.5%. Now, that is a really good return on investment. Now, again, notice the equity that the $1.65 premium is earned on is not the strike price, but the true cost basis of your former calls that you purchased at $52 a share. That's why the annualized return is actually really attractive because you don't have a lot of money on the line. You only have $52 and you're earning $1.65 on that. Hence, the high return earned of 44% because of the low cost basis. Let's see what happens with certain price scenarios from today until these covered calls expire on August 26, 2022. If the Meta share price drops or stays in the $159 market price range, the contracts will expire worthless on August 26th. The $1.65 per share in earnings will be yours with no further obligations. However, if the price climbs to around, let's say, $175 per share and expires on August 26th, Notice you'll still keep the $1.65 per share in premiums with no obligations. But do not forget you own the underlying option calls expiring September 2023. The value of those initial calls you've purchased will certainly have increased in value, in which you could sell them for a strong gain. However, what if you sold more covered calls at the same strike price for next month? Let's say you resold covered call options with the following terms. I'm going to go ahead and erase these again and clear up for the second covered call trade. Hypothetically, if this one actually expired worthless and we pocketed the $1.65 with no obligations. Okay, the second covered call hypothetically is this. Meta on September 23, 2022, at, let's say, the same strike price at 180. These are calls. And now, if the price, the new market price, let's put that over here, is now $175 a share, then the value of these calls, selling these covered calls, are going to be significantly more than when we sold them before. Of course, I erased it, when the market price was $159, and we sold it at $180, and we got $1.65. Remember? But now, if the market price is $175 per share, much closer to our chosen strike price of $180 a share, we're going to get a lot better premiums. And in fact, I've actually calculated looking at stock option charts to determine that, and it's about $6.50 a share. Okay, so that means with the same terms expiring except next month, in September 23, 2022, at the same strike price, we're going to receive $650 per contract that we sell with these terms. Now, what is the annualized return on a deal like this? Well, let's calculate it. Annual return is going to be $6.50 per share on what cost basis again? Hope you remembered. $52, because that's the cost that we paid for these contracts to control these shares to even be able to sell these covered calls over and over again. $365. Now, assuming we did this when the other contracts actually expired, what was that, August 26th? That would leave about 29 days until expiration of these contracts. Okay. We've got the equation. All we have to do is plug in the numbers and solve it. And we get 158%. So notice that, look at the powerhouse returns we get on this particular covered call. And you may ask, man, why is it so much more in returns? Well, again, obvious, because we're getting $6.50, but that is driven because the market price is so close to our chosen and selected strike price. Now, of course, the risks are a little bit higher, because if the Meta shares go significantly above the 180, well, we're going to be obligated to have to do something. So you could, if you wanted to avoid that or reduce the probability of that happening, you could raise the strike price to 185, 190, 200 to reduce that risk. Of course, you'll receive less premium earnings for such contracts, but it is something that you can do when you set the terms of your deal. So what indeed is the risk of this? Well, what if the Meta share price explodes to $200 a share? In this case, the value of your covered calls will increase dramatically to at least $20 per share. You say, well, how did I come up with that number? Well, if the market price of Meta is now $200 a share, and the guy who bought your covered calls has you obligated to sell to him at $180 a share, well, 180 is $20 a share. You have to sell to him at 180. He's able to sell them in the open market at 200. The value of those contracts will be at least $20 a share and will be $20 a share on the day of expiration on September 23rd. Before that, there's obviously going to be some time value in there, so they will actually be worth a little bit more than $20 a share. Now notice you received only $6.50 for them. Okay? However, are you going to lose money in this deal? The amazing thing is, the answer is no. Because you control the underlying stock that you can exercise at $125 in the initial option contracts that you purchased. You can easily deliver the required meta shares at the price you are obligated to sell them at the $180 price. However, notice you will make even more gains when you do this. If you are exercising and buying the underlying meta stock at $125, and then you're delivering or selling them at $180, then you are making a revenue on the difference. And what's the difference? Well, if you're selling them at 180 and you're buying them at 125, then what's the difference? Well, it's $55. So that's actually the revenue that you're receiving when these contracts are actually exercised and you close out your covered calls. However, you purchase these contracts at $52 a share. Therefore, your additional net gain is going to be $55 minus the $52 in cost basis that you paid. So $55 minus 52 is going to equal an additional $3 per share, or $300 for every contract that you purchased of these September 15 strike $125 contracts. This extra gain is in addition to what you earned in the covered call earnings when you sold these covered call contracts. Pretty cool, isn't it? Notice that you will always make an additional net gain on the initial calls purchased as long as you set your strike price on the covered calls sold higher than the break-even price of the initial calls that you purchased. That is a very important point, and the reason why I wanted to stress that the break-even price or effective price is very important when utilizing this strategy. One last point to make here. In reality, it actually gets even better. That is because to preserve even more net gains, you would actually not exercise the initial calls purchased to deliver the shares at the strike price of your covered calls sold. Instead, you would buy and close the covered calls, which you have to do first, at a loss, and sell to close the initial calls purchased for an even greater gain. This preserves the time value in the meta September 15, 2023 125 call contracts and will earn you actually more gains than the former process I explained of exercising. I will not go through the math here in this video, but if there is further interest on what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments section, and I may create another video specific to this strategy, adding further detail. You can repeat this process by selling covered calls against your purchase calls over and over again by continuing to raise your covered call strike price to reduce the chances of assignment. If the share price steadily increases and you avoid assignment on your covered calls sold, the value of your initial calls you purchased will greatly increase in value, at which point you could eventually sell the calls or continue the process until September 15, 2023, when your original calls expire. When that day comes, you can sell the initial call contracts for a nice profit or exercise the underlying Meta contracts and purchase the underlying Meta stock at $125 per share if you desire to hold the stock for a long-term investment. If you did the latter, you actually can continue selling covered calls for premium income on the Meta stock rather than the Meta calls. Pretty cool. That concludes this video on the 4 different option strategies you can employ based on personal preference and current market conditions. These 4 strategies, especially if you apply them, will excite additional option strategy ideas of your own, guaranteed. It happens every time. And then life becomes really fun. All the best to you in employing these specific option strategies. If this video was valuable to you, please like it and/or subscribe to my channel. Thanks, and have a wonderful day.